This episode is a World War One episode, but it's also a very rambly episode. So if y'all don't like listening to people having conversations, this is probably not the episode for you. But I highly recommend sticking around because we talk about a lot of different things, including obviously the World War. But I have a feeling you're going to learn a lot of really awesome tidbits if you stick around. All right, love you guys. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, technical difficulties beyond our control are delaying our presentation.
And now good morning to everyone in my night audience.
Station operates on a frequency of 1,406 kilohertz. Completion of general mobilization.
I've got my water on my Guns, Germs, and Steel. I am joining you from my bed at 10:45 p.m.
I like to point out you
Wednesday.
never talk like this when we're not recording. You only ever talk like that when we're recording.
I know.
It's preposterous.
I will stop.
It's okay. It's your stick. It's your thing.
I will stop.
So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the First World War
Okay.
and the Second World War.
That's a lot of war.
And it is a lot of war. And we'll see how long it takes us to do the two wars. I am not convinced that it will take us 4 hours, but we'll see. It depends how many questions I have to ask you, sir.
Yeah.
How many questions I can muster, precisely. Alrighty. So, how do we even start this? Like, how do we go ahead and...
How much do you know?
Like,
let's start with that. How about you talk?
Okay.
When you start. How much do you know? Actually, let's do it individual. How much do you know about World War One?
Okay, so World War One. I think my greatest knowledge that comes from World War One is after watching War Horse.
Okay.
But otherwise, I know that the First World War started because of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Did you write?
His name was Franz Ferdinand, right?
Franz Ferdinand.
Okay.
Do you have that written down, or you just remember?
No, I remember it.
Oh, do you remember who shot
But
him?
wait, no. Do you know why I remember this?
Why?
This is gonna sound really like anti-historical, but oh my god, it was in a John Green book.
Oh God.
It was either in The Fault in Our Stars or in Finding Alaska. Oh my god, that's probably not the name of the book. Anyways, something about Alaska. Anyways, it was in one of John Green's books.
I mean, he's a history.
And it just stuck into my mind.
Yeah, he's a history guy.
No, isn't his brother a history guy?
No, it's John Green.
Hank Green?
Hank Green's the scientist. No, yeah, Hank Green's the scientist. John Green is the historian.
Well, there you go. So John Green is also a teen novel author. In one of his books, he wrote something about Franz Ferdinand, and from that day on, I kind of just remembered it because I was like, oh, that's how the First World War started.
But who shot him?
So yeah, I have no idea who
Gabriel
shot him.
Princip.
Who is Gabriel Princip?
How old was he at the time? I think 19. I don't exactly remember his age, but he belonged to a terrorist Serbian group called the Black Hand, and
Okay.
they wanted to kill him.
Wait, so, okay, Franz Ferdinand, where is he from? Is he Austrian?
Austro-Hungary.
There we go. Okay, so Austro-Hungarian and a Serbian...
Nationalist.
19-year-old
Yes.
Nationalist. Okay, so historical context behind this. Why would a 19-year-old Serbian nationalist want to shoot the Archduke of Austria-Hungary?
Well, where is Austria?
Well, right above Serbia? No. Oh shit, my geography is absolutely terrible. What on earth? Anyways, Austria is, well, it's next to Switzerland,
Yes,
no? It's to the right of Switzerland.
Switzerland, Italy, and Germany, right?
Right.
Well, Serbia nearly borders Greece, so the empire stretched from there all the way down there, taking up Czechoslovakia and modern-day Yugoslavia, and
Austria-Hungary.
Yeah, and Hungary.
Okay.
Think of how many nationalities are within that. The empire itself was a mess, and people they hated it because it was a very, very German centrist kind of.
Okay.
And Franz Ferdinand was the heir of the throne to Franz Joseph the First. Pretty sure that's his name.
Okay.
So, kill the heir. They thought he was a tyrant as well, right? And
They thought Franz Ferdinand
I'm
was
really
tyrant.
showing my ignorance here.
So am I. This is an ignorance. I feel like this is an ignorance episode, but also not.
The worst
Anyways,
part is
yes.
I learned this like last month. I went and refreshed my memory on this, and it has left me. But you know what? This isn't going to be an episode of pure knowledge. It's just a. This is just a discussion.
This is a discussion, but also learn some fun facts. Well, actually, learn the basics.
Yeah, but you learn the basics. The basics is Franz Ferdinand went down to Sarajevo, a town in right, and the nationalist group called the Black Hand wanted to kill him, and there was a group of them. They attempted to assassinate him. They threw a car bomb, and it missed. And it's straight out of a Looney Tunes. They were throwing about. They were throwing grenades. They missed. One of them tried to shoot, and they completely, it was a complete disaster. So, Franz Ferdinand insisted on going to visit the injured in the hospital in his open-top car after trying to get assassinated. Yeah.
Big eye roll.
They told him not to do it, but he insisted on doing it. And as they were driving, they made a wrong turn, right? And Gabriel Princip was just standing there. And there's Franz...
Bam!
No, there's Franz Ferdinand right in front of him. Can you imagine being that kid? And you were one of the few to be tasked to kill him. You screwed up. And now here he is right in front of you. You got your gun in your pocket.
Second chance.
Like, okay, you're asking for it. Bang.
Yeah.
So
all the stars aligned.
Yeah. So
essentially, hold on. Yeah. So essentially, at the time, because Austria-Hungary was, the borders of Austria-Hungary was, I guess, extended down into Serbia. Well, they essentially had control over what is current day Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Serbia. I'm assuming also Croatia. Eastern Europe.
Yeah, it was all the way down.
In general, all the Slavic countries, essentially.
Essentially, yeah, except for Serbia and Romania and Bulgaria.
What do you mean, except for?
Well,
Romania?
They weren't part of it. Romania, Bulgaria. It was everything
Serbia?
Just above of Greece was independent.
Okay.
Right? There was like a border between Greece, those countries.
So then Croatia was probably independent as well.
No, Croatia was part of Austria-Hungary.
Oh, interesting.
Pretty sure.
So,
I hope my professor's
because
not
Serbia is right behind... Wow, hold on. Let me pull up a map because... So, we're looking at Austria-Hungary in 1912, let's say, right?
Sure. 1914. Yeah, 1914.
Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia.
Don't read spoilers because I got to explain how the war started.
No, I shan't. So Austria-Hungary images. Okay, so basically they had Austria, obviously, Bohemia, which was current day Czech Republic.
Yeah, Czech Republic.
Czech Republic, Slovakia, Gallica, which... Ooh, what was that? Ukraine. Interesting. Okay, then there's Romania. Romania was also... it was Transylvania at the time, but Romania was under Austria-Hungary as well.
Fact check.
Slavonia. Slavonia is Croatia. Croatia was also under control of... Austria-Hungary.
You gotta keep in mind while you're reading all this, these are all different nationalities with different languages.
Precisely. And I feel like it's kind of like in Germany with Bavaria as well. Bavarians and sort of. It's kind of under the same vibe.
Sort of. They did speak German, while an Austrian didn't speak Serbian,
Okay. Yeah. But did they all speak German?
In Austria?
Well, in Hungary, Slovakia, at the time, let's say. Okay, so it was all really different nationalities, but they were all kind of influenced by Austria-Hungary.
Yeah.
It was with
Croatian
that German,
soldiers,
the very German
You got Croatian
vibe.
soldiers being led by a Czech general who doesn't speak Croatian.
So they all kind of wanted their independence at the time, let's
It was
say.
a disaster. The whole empire is a joke. It's a complete meme.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So just a chaotic mess. And then the Serbian... But Serbia wasn't under.
No, Serbia was not under.
So why were they freaking out? Oh, something Thomas doesn't know.
I told you I was studying this a couple of days ago, and it just left my head. We got a lot to go through here. I'm gonna get something.
This is literally us.
Yeah,
This is
I'm
literally...
gonna get some
Why-
things wrong. I'm not.
Why
I'm not
was
all
Serbia...
knowing.
Wait. So I'm typing in Google, why was Serbia mad at Austria-Hungary? Let's see. So, literally, I feel like this episode is super awesome. Like, we're just discovering things in real time. Okay, so Austria-Hungary's military hawks, principal culprits for the conflict, saw the assassination of the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand by a Bosnian Serb
Yeah, but that came after.
as an excuse to conquer and destroy Serbia. An unstable neighbor who sought to expand beyond its borders into Austro-Hungarian territories.
That came after. That's the problem.
No, apparently this is in 1867.
Okay.
So Serbian claims were not recognized by Hungary and was eventually placated with Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867, further angering Serbian nationalists. So Austria annexed Serbia, basically. And Austrian fears of Slavic expansionism. Okay, so basically, from what I'm understanding, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Serbia, but I'm pretty sure, is Bosnia? Yeah, so Bosnia-Herzegovina and Serbia, they both were annexed by Austria-Hungary because they were kind of like seen as the rebel state. So they were like, nah, y'all can leave. But then Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina, they both wanted to expand their borders into lands that were considered Austria-Hungary. And so essentially, every time that they asked to expand their borders, Austria-Hungary would say no. They would be like, nah, no. Y'all are Slavic. You could stay where you are. We don't need you. We have our German influence. No. So all this beautiful sentence. All this nationalist sentiment kind of scared Austria-Hungary.
Yeah.
And think of it, while I'm looking at this, I'm kind of thinking, and it's probably not anything alike, but I'm kind of thinking of like the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. Basically that, like the Irish, they wanted their land, they wanted their territory, they wanted their independence, but they also wanted to expand their land into, Northern Ireland, let's say. They wanted to take it back.
Yeah.
And the English were like, no, that's okay. So the Irish kind of just revolted. And I think this kind of is the same vibe.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So.
Okay.
It's okay.
So, yes.
Here we go. We have learned something today.
Indeed.
It's the part of the history that's like, ugh. So, Gabriel Princip assassinates Franz Ferdinand, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know what happens next?
They wage war.
No, they did not. Austria send a list of demands to Serbia, right? Mm-hmm. Saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to... Impossible demands. That's the whole point of the demands. If you do not accept this, we will declare war. Mm-hmm. That's like you punching me in the face and saying, okay, well, you're going to give me your house or I'm going to burn down your house.
Wait, Serbia was saying this?
Austria was saying this to Serbia.
Okay.
Was giving them impossible demands or we're going to invade you. Basically surrender.
Okay, got it.
Surrender or we'll kill you. That's basically it.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So, obviously Serbia said no. So Austria, get ready for this, right? You were asking me the other day, how did World War I start, right? Here's your answer. So Austria declares war on Serbia, right? Do you know who is allied with Serbia?
Who is allied with Serbia?
Russia.
France. Oh.
Russia is allied with Serbia, who declares war on Austria. And who is allied with Austria?
Germany. Who
declares war on Russia. But who is allied with Russia?
France.
So Germany declares war on France quickly. Because they knew where they were going to declare war.
Right, exactly.
Right? So Britain did not join the war at this time, right? So the plan was Germany was going to invade France quickly, right? While Germany was going to invade France quickly while Russia was stumbling around trying to get their weapons ready, going to get mobilized their army, because they were a complete disaster. You know, they had a weird wizard man running the country at the time.
Wait, who?
Rasputin.
Oh my God! It's true. I was like, wait a second, who are you talking about? Not Nicholas. By the way, slight tangent, and I know
we're gonna do a lot of these,
this. Wait, slight tangent, but I know you know this. But Nicholas the First, no, Nicholas the Second, Nicholas the Third, Nicholas the Second. Jeez Louise, there's too many. Nicholases, Nikolais,
What? There's
Andres.
two.
Literally, okay, no, but like throughout Russian history, like last semester, no, okay, Nicholases, yes, there's two, but there's like 100 Andres, and there's like 10,000 Konstantins, and like 100 Alexanders. It's absolutely insane. Like I remember when I was doing my Russian history class last semester, 2 semesters ago, my first semester, literally my prof was like, all right, y'all are gonna have to start counting because you're gonna have to remember what all these names are. Anyways, so Nicholas II, absolute favorite man. If I was a monarch, I would probably be him.
Why?
Because completely dysfunctional man.
He was a disaster.
Did I tell you? So I did this reading, and apparently, okay, so at the time in Russia, women needed to basically write a letter and send a letter to the Tsar to ask for a divorce. If they wanted to get divorced, they had to write a letter to the Tsar and send it, right? And like obviously at the time it was just a formality, and like there was an assistant to the Tsar stamping letters saying yes, approved, that's fine, okay, cool, go, keep on. But Nicholas II, he actually took this job like super seriously, and he was like, no, I must read every letter and thoroughly decide if this woman really deserves to have a divorce. Yeah. And so like he would go into like quote unquote parliament. So he would basically go into like the house where all of his members of, you know, of
his posse.
MPs, quote unquote, like MPs, quote unquote. And basically they would all be asking him, like, Nicholas, what do we do? There's a war happening. Like, what are we supposed to, like, how are we supposed to act? What do you want us to do? Like, what are we supposed to do? And he's like, before we get to that, I need to just discuss all of the letters of divorce that I have read throughout my day and just discuss how deeply concerned I am with the state of our marital affairs in this country. And he would literally talk about this for 45 minutes, and then every time someone would try to like interrupt him and be like, no, but Nicholas, like there are more important things that are happening right now, he'd be like, yeah, okay, we're gonna shut it down and we're gonna take this up tomorrow. Like literally he did not want to be there, and he did not know what he was doing, and he was just an absolute fucking disaster of a Tsar.
We call that, in the UK, we call that a busy idiot. So
literally, that is Nicholas II.
Yeah. So
anyways, yes.
So Germany needs to invade France, but they decide to go through Belgium, right? So because they started invading neutral countries, who was allied with Belgium?
Switzerland.
Great Britain.
Oh.
What do you
I was like neutral countries.
No, Belgium.
Ignore me.
Belgium is a neutral country, right? Belgium had nothing to do with this war.
I didn't but hold on a second.
Yeah.
If you're a neutral country, why would you be allied?
Well, they weren't allied with anybody who was in the war, is what I mean.
Oh, got it. Okay, yes.
So they invaded a neutral country. They went around through Belgium, and Great Britain's like, hey, you can't do that. So they declared war, right?
Ah, okay.
Also, it may have been because Germany started building a navy. Maybe that.
So Britain was like, ooh, we're starting to get, this is concerning.
Okay, you're going to smack your head for this one.
Tell me.
Remember Titanic?
Yeah.
Remember the White Star Line?
Yep.
Well, a couple of years before, the White Star Line built a ship called the Teutonic, right? And there was a great show going on where they were showing off their ships, and Kaiser Wilhelm visited the UK, and he went on board the ship and said, wow, this is the most marvelous ship I have ever seen. I think Germany needs to start building their own ships. So...
Oh my god. They basically fucked themselves over.
Yeah. But it's little things like that is why I don't like alternate history, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the American Civil War is what caused Great Britain to have this amazing shipping line across the ocean, right? It's indirectly, it's a long, long story, right? But the White Star Line came because of the American Civil War, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which in turn caused them to build that particular ship, which caused Germany to be inspired to build their own ships, which caused later on Great Britain to declare war on Germany because
they were building ships that looked just like those in Britain.
It's so small. It's so small that I hate watching alternate history. Like, what if the American Civil War never happened? Well, the First World War would be much different. Like,
the First World War probably wouldn't have happened.
Yes, exactly.
Well, like, yeah.
The domino effect is incredible. I hate alternate history. You know,
but that's the thing. Like, there's so many little things like that in history that have happened that create a domino effect because everything is interrelated. And that, I think that's just the nature of humanity in the end. Like, every single little action, it's a butterfly effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I hate alternate history. Side tangent there. I study history as it was, not how it could have been. I'll leave that to the artists and the writers.
And once again, how it was, there are so many different perspectives on how it was.
Oh, yeah. There's so many little
one
stories.
Event has so many perspectives, infinite amount of perspectives. So it's like, what really is the truth? There is no real truth, you know? Like, we could be telling historical context, and because basically that's what we're doing right now. We're just giving historical context, right? But the reality is that there are so many realities that you can never really put your finger on all of them. And like, even if we sit and we're like, oh, you know, this is the chronological order of events that happen. It's like the chronological order of events that happen for whom, right? For international relations, for the simplification of how the war happened. But I think understanding the context will in turn help us understand every other little minutia that contributed to everything, basically, to the rest of history. Yeah.
There's a lot of little things. Like, just an example, I was talking to someone about this the other day, is what was one of the first countries to use gas during the First World War? Not the first.
Who?
One of the first.
Who?
Canada. You wouldn't think Canada would use poison gas, would you?
No. But also Canada has its history as well. I'm not surprised.
Canada's a weird anomaly. Like,
it is a weird anomaly.
Do you know who Mackenzie King is, right?
Of course I know who Mackenzie King is.
Did you know he was a Nazi?
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Mackenzie, yeah.
I'm really not surprised. But Mackenzie King was a weird man.
He was a very weird man.
Very
For those who
bizarre.
don't know, Mackenzie King was our prime minister during the war. He was our FDR, essentially.
It's a very, very bizarre man.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember reading something where he would go outside and look at the clouds and determine how he was going to do that day by the cloud pattern. He was a very superstitious man.
He also had books and books and books of his own poetry.
Yeah.
Like, he sat and he just wrote poetry. But, like, if you read his poetry, you're just like, what on earth was going on in this man's head?
You know, he met Hitler,
Louise.
right?
Once again, not surprised, but
not only
go
did
on.
he meet Hitler, he said it was one of the greatest moments of his life.
Fabulous.
But
see, that's the thing. I think another thing that we forget often is that, you know, Canada does a really, really good job of portraying
Self.
itself as the
Yeah.
as the golden child, as like, I read this thing the other day that was, well, the other day, probably like a year ago, but it's coming to my mind right now. Canada likes to think of itself as the nice old lady above a meth lab.
Yeah.
You know,
Little-
who lives above a meth lab. And like,
Little does she know,
in the end,
she's making a profit
little
off
does
that
you
meth
know,
lab.
right, and she has like Nazi paraphernalia in her backyard, in her closet,
My
you know,
husband
like,
was in the SS.
right. So like, I think in the end, Canada has a really dark history.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we often forget about these things. Like last semester, I did this paper on what at the time was called Indian hospitals. And Indian hospitals basically taking indigenous tuberculosis patients out of the reserve, sticking them in a hospital that is way over capacity, making them eat their own vomit, living in moldy environments, cutting out pieces of their lungs without consent. You know, it's just basically, it's a disaster. And like the residential school systems that, you know, the last one closed in 1999. It's fucked up, man. Like, there's a lot of things that Canada, once again, does a really good job of kind of hiding, and does a really good job of sweeping under the rug and saying, no, we're polite, we're great.
Did you know
Canada's
Canada?
the place to be.
Did you know Canada used to turn away Jews during the war? Jewish refugees.
Used to what?
Turn away Jewish refugees.
Yeah, once again, not surprised.
Boatloads, and we'd return them all down. We'd tell them to go away.
Yep. See, like, Canada is not as sunshine and roses, yeah, sunshine and daisies as they portray themselves to be. There is a lot of shit going down, and even, you know, I think it's coming up more and more in recent times. You could see it a lot more. It's more blatant because people are starting to speak up. But yeah,
I think it just contradicts Canada. That's the problem. Is Canada, we've built this false sense of, like, this false mask over us. And and you know, I never blame a country for its past. Even Germany, you know, I wouldn't mind living in Germany. But like, I don't like how we pretend we're all wonderful, because it's coming to bite us in the ass, right?
it is.
It's not
It's not
our history's fault. It's our modern fault for trying to hide that. You know, we had internment camps, right? The Japanese internment camps.
Yeah,
Most people don't know that. We had our own internment camps.
And it's absolutely you know, I think so. You know this, but I'm just gonna say this. But like, I live in Quebec, and in Quebec, in our history classes in elementary school and in high school, we are not taught about the residential school system.
No.
And I only learned about the residential school system because at one point I saw someone wearing an orange shirt that literally said on the back, like, Orange Shirt Day, residential school systems, never forget. And I was like, what's that? I think I was 17 years old when I learned for the first time what a residential school system was. Well, what a residential school was. And you know, I'd like to say that I was completely shocked and disgusted, and I was, but also it's like one of those things that why were we not told this? Why were we not taught this? And like, Canada does such a good job at just kind of like erasing that and being like, yeah, no, that never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. You know,
This is gonna be such a strange episode.
it really is.
That's
What is
okay.
going on here?
Well,
Anyways,
that's fine. Okay, let's go back to World War One.
It's World War One and ramblings.
Yeah, World War One. It's just
That's
us.
the title of our
Welcome
episode.
to an episode of us. That's pretty much it.
Basically,
We just got through exams.
welcome to an episode.
Yeah, we just got
And
through
we're just
exams.
chatting.
Yeah, we're just chatting history. You know,
Exactly.
we didn't prepare
is-
anything for this.
No, and you know, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
It's like, literally, we're learning as we go.
Yeah.
You are seeing in live. Wow. Once again,
Wow.
you are seeing live how disgusting my sentences are. No, but you're seeing live how we learn, how we discuss with each other all things historical. Anyways,
World War
okay,
One.
so
Where
yes.
were we?
Okay, so Franz Ferdinand gets assassinated.
Anyway,
Everybody.
I don't
Okay, hold on a second. So Britain, they go through Belgium. England comes in and they
Great Britain invades.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. But the Germans, a lot of British think that why are we aiding the French, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The Germans are our ancestors. Why are we fighting them? It's why the war in the beginning was kind of weird, you know? Technology itself was booming we got all these guns, we got all these everything, and we've never used it, so let's give it a try. And you know of the Christmas truce, right?
I do,
Okay.
but go over it.
1914 is a good example of the Christmas truce. It mostly happened between the British and the Germans, right? It wasn't one line. It was all over the place. The entire trench system. It rarely happened between the French and the Germans for obvious reasons, you know. You're in our country, invading us. I'm not associating with you. While the British are like, hey, sup, we're just here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that game of soccer, that was a thing that actually happened. And some people met up. They shook hands for a bit and then they went back to the trenches. Some people stayed out for the whole day, the whole night. They partied the whole time. Some people tried to get out, but their officers just shot at them, and that was that. There were people did die on Christmas Day, you know. It wasn't a major ceasefire across the whole line, but it did happen. There were soldiers that took a break and they just met up with each other and they just chilled. And in a way, if there is a top 10 greatest moments in human history, I think that'd be one of them. Because everybody just disobeyed their officers and they just were humans for a day. They weren't Germans, they weren't British, they just human. They sang carols, they traded gifts, and they buried their dead. Some, like the French and the Germans, some of them that was their piece, was let's collect our dead and not shoot at each other. I don't want to talk to you, but let's just not shoot at each other. So, but it only happened that once because the technological advancement of the war just got so brutal. They're gassing us. Our friends are dead. You know, I don't want to associate with them anymore. That's why they tried. They did try. Some soldiers tried, but it didn't work. So it only happened that once, and it's probably never going to happen ever again in history.
No. And I think just you were talking about technological advances. I think one thing about the First World War that absolutely blows my mind is the tunneling.
Oh, yes.
That was happening. And I mean, this is just, the trauma that these tunnelers must experience. I mean, you're digging underground. At any moment in time, your tunnel could completely collapse under you. But also at any moment in time, you could bump into an enemy who is also tunneling towards you and is planting a bomb to basically explode everything. Bye. It's wow, no.
What they would do is they would stop digging and they would listen and they could hear the Germans digging. So what they would do is they would blow up their own tunnel and make their tunnel collapse in on itself. So, and I've been in one of these tunnels. They're fucked. They're crazy.
But what's crazy is, well, obviously you've been in one, but what's crazy is seeing the pick marks. Like, these men were digging with picks.
Yeah.
With, like, ice picks, essentially. Yeah.
Do you know what the worst job was of the war?
What was the worst job?
A runner.
Oh, no. Tell me what a runner is.
A runner is, they give you a message and you got to run across the trenches or you got to run to the back of the line and you're the messenger boy.
No. Yeah. I do not like
they
that.
They got their own beds. They had their own room. They got their own barracks. They got higher pay. I think their life expectancy was 2 weeks.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So they didn't.
That's brutal. Jesus.
So. Yeah, I saw their beds too in the tunnels when we went down in the tunnels at Vimy Ridge. Is they had their own beds. The beds were still there. But everybody else on top is sleeping in the bud and stuff while the messengers got to sleep next to the officers' quarters. because an officer might come out and give them a message and say, get going. But
Oh my
also
God.
because they're most likely to die out of everybody. And do you know who was a runner in the war? Can you name one runner?
No.
I think you can.
Who was a
I
runner?
think you can. Think of
Give me a hint.
World War II.
Think of World War
Think
II.
of World War II.
Hitler?
Hitler was a runner. That was his job.
And he didn't die?
Nope, for 4 years. He started from the beginning of the war right to the end. He was a runner. And he survived. He got wounded 6 times. He got gassed once. And he survived the war.
Damn. Shouldn't have. But, okay, this is also another kind of like existential thing. Imagine he died.
Yeah.
Okay, you love alternate
I
histories,
love
as we
alternate
know.
history.
But imagine if he died.
I think
He was a runner. Like, everything was pointing for him to die during the First World War. But he didn't.
if you put a gun to my head and said, what would happen to Germany? I think Germany would have gone through its own communist revolution. That's what I think.
Really?
Yes. Because
Why?
by the time Hitler rose to power, or just before that, there were 2 parties that like ran most of the country, like the most popular, the communists and the fascists. Back then, it's a lot of what you see today. You're either a communist or a fascist. You are nothing. You are not in between. Right? Choose your side. It was a lot worse back then. You know, there was no neutral. There was you were either a communist or a fascist. So, I think Germany would have became communist. Apparently, I read somewhere that France was supposed to be communist, right?
Not surprising.
This timeline we're in right now is the timeline communism was supposed to take over in France. It didn't. It's crazy how I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, because the communist movement in France was so prevalent, but they never had their own communist revolution. It just didn't happen.
But the thing is, was it really a communist movement?
Yes.
Was it communist or was it just blatantly anti-monarchist?
No, it was communist. It was
Really?
Leninist. It was the same thing the Russians got going on over there. Yeah.
Now you got me curious. Why not? There has to be papers written, hypothesizing on this. I'm curious now. But no, my winter project is researching about the Picts.
A bit different from... I like how you saluted.
A little bit.
She saluted while...
The
Picts.
The Picts.
So what else?
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so, et cetera, this is how the war started. What were the main battles? So basically, you know how you were saying there was technological advances? Yeah. What battles, because, okay, once again, taking my knowledge from Warhorse, essentially, you see the change, right? Yes. You see the change from horseback to tanks throughout the film. What were some main battles where you can really see those changes? So like a battle on horseback, a battle in tanks, a battle with guns, a battle with swords.
Well, the Somme was interesting because it was the first battle with tanks, right? That's where they rolled out the tanks.
What year?
1916. 1916 was the worst year. That was the year of the war. Oh my goodness, it all happened in 1916. Yeah.
Okay.
So you also got...
In France? Mostly?
Belgium. It's right on the border. It used to flip back and forth all the time.
Where were the fronts? Where were the main fronts?
So you had 1, 2, 3, 4-ish fronts, right? You had you had the Eastern Front, which was Russia, Austria-Hungary, and yeah, there's a lot more fronts than 4. So you got Austria-Hungary, you got Germany against the Russians, right? But that was brutal. The Germans just steamrolled them, right?
So when you say the Germans and the Russians, you mean the
Austro-Hungarians and the German.
Russian. Yeah. And the Russian border, essentially.
Yes, there was 2 borders. Okay. Poland didn't exist at the time, so it was
right.
It was those 3, right? Russia managed to hold back the Austro-Hungarians, right? Mm-hmm. Germany put way too...
As Russians do.
The Germans put way too much trust into the Austro-Hungarians. So the Germans' heavy side moved up there and just steamrolled them. That's why...
The Russians?
Germany steamrolled Russia.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, the Russians were so ill-equipped for the war. They had outdated weapons.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
I think I read somewhere there were some cases where the Russians were using muskets. It was so bad.
But also, if I remember correctly, the Industrial Revolution came to Russia a little bit later.
Yeah, no, they were
than
still
it did the
using
rest
serfs.
of Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so they had shitty weapons. They had no food. They had crappy gear, crappy leadership. There was no way. It was easy for the Germans. They could just... A good example of that would be the Teutoburg Forest, if you ever get a chance to look at that.
Ooh, what's Teutoburg Forest?
Teutoburg. Tannenberg. Yeah, Tannenberg. Teutoburg was Roman era. Tannenberg Forest.
The first battle of the Masurian Lakes and the medieval Battle of Tannenberg. The victorious German commander, General Feldmarschall Paul von Hindenburg, became a national hero and was later interred at this site. Interesting. Okay. Kind of looks like Stonehenge. Controversial opinion.
Stonehenge. Did you look at the numbers at the bottom? Casualties?
Nope.
Battle of Tannenberg. I'll read them out to you, right?
Tell me.
The Germans had 150,000 soldiers, while the Russians had 230,000.
Okay.
Germany lost 13,000 men. Russia lost 170,000.
Big difference.
Steamrolled. Yeah, the leader, Alexander Semenov, killed himself. He was so ashamed. Yeah. Shot. It wasn't his.
Meanwhile,
it wasn't
Nicholas
his fault.
II was sitting there talking about divorce letters.
It wasn't his fault. There was nothing he could do, but he shot himself. So that was one front, and then you have the Italian front between the Italians and the Austrians, right? The Italians were originally in the Central Powers, Germans, blah, but Italians switched sides. And if you want...
Question.
Yep.
So the Italians during the First World War, they were allied with?
The Entente. Yeah, speaking of which, there's two factions. The Entente.
Yes, beautiful.
The Entente were the Allies, and the Central Powers were, look at the map, Central. So you got the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Germany.
Those were...
The Central Powers.
Yes, but you have the Entente and the Central Powers?
Yes.
Okay. And the Entente was Russia?
Yeah, Russia, Serbia.
France.
Yeah, Russia, France, Serbia, Belgium, France. Did I say France?
England.
Yeah, England.
I said France.
Okay. Eventually Greece, eventually Portugal, Canada, India, British colonies.
So literally everybody
Basically,
against Germany and Austria-Hungary.
Yeah. Japan as well, fun fact.
Japan was with?
Yeah, Japan was with the Entente.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was the world versus Germany, essentially.
Essentially. Okay.
And so there was the Italian front, like you were talking about. That was brutal for no reason, because incompetence. They were fighting in the mountains. And what they used to do, just an example of how the war was fought in the mountains, is they used to plant dynamite. And they used to blow it. Most casualties of the war were either falling off mountains or man-made avalanches.
Yep.
So
also in Italy, there's the Alpine forces. So in Italian, it's I Alpini. And they're basically the mountain unit.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are trained to fight in the mountains. And during the Second World War, they were a very, very, very big part of destroying fascism, essentially. Big part of the resistance movement, which we will be talking about probably not today. But yeah, it's a tradition in Italy. It's a tradition. Essentially. It's a tradition. Alpine fighting in the mountains.
Kind of pointless today, but you know.
I mean, it still exists. Yeah. It's a tradition. They have little feathers in their hats.
So, the Italian front, the Eastern front, the Italian front, the Serbian front, Austria-Hungary, Serbia, and Serbia was winning. Serbia was beating Austria-Hungary, so the Germans had to come down and help them with that. And then you got the Western Front, which is the famous one, the trenches.
So France.
Yeah,
France and Germany.
France, Belgium, Germany. The line, it's incredible. The trench line went from the coast all the way down to Switzerland.
Belgium? Oh shit!
Yeah,
okay.
It was just trenches all the way down, and then you had the Japanese were taking over German islands, and then you had the Middle East with Lawrence of Arabia. Fun fact, yeah. So that was that front, and then there was the Greek front, where the Greeks joined the war and invaded Turkey, and
Turkey was with who?
Central Powers. Turkey was Ottoman Empire.
So the Ottoman Empire was with the Central Powers.
Yes.
Got it. So Ottoman Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire,
Germany. And briefly Italy.
Briefly Italy. When?
The beginning of the war, the Italians were part of the Central Powers.
Oh, and then they were like, nah, that's chill.
Pretty much. That's how Italy rolls.
Okay.
So,
yeah, basically.
Famous battles. Have you heard of Verdun?
Nope.
Battle of Verdun? You haven't never heard of Battle of Verdun? Oh my goodness. So, Verdun is a city in France that is very sacred to the French, right? It's a place where they used to beat the Germans all the time, right? If they failed anywhere, it's not Verdun. So, the Germans, high command, realized that they will defend that city to the death, right? So what they did was they lured the French down to Verdun, and there was no strategic purpose of that city, right? Nothing. It was the battle itself was simply to kill people. That was it. Was to kill as many French people as possible. And that's what it was. And for months, it was just constant bombardment. Millions people died at that battle. Millions of Germans and French died. And the French won in the end, so it was a complete waste of fucking time. Yeah, that was where the most brutal fighting was. It was Verdun. And then you got the Somme, where the tanks came in. And there's no specific battle where everything changed. It was very gradual, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the Somme was where the tanks started. Mm-hmm. The first day of the Somme was the worst day in British history. 20,000 British soldiers died, right? Because the leader, the commander, General Haig, who today is known as Haig the Butcher, right? Mm-hmm. He bombarded the Germans, and he was so confident in his ability, he ordered his soldiers to walk to the German lines. I'm surprised he didn't make them dance. And so that's what they did. They walked, but the bombardment failed. They missed. So the British were walking, getting mowed down by machine guns. It was so bad, the Germans didn't even look. The machine gunner could close their eyes, and they could just mow them down.
Oh my god.
It was, even the Germans were like, what the hell is going on? And the word got back to Haig that, hey, you missed. And he says, no, I didn't. Send the next wave. And he just kept sending men because he didn't believe he failed. He just kept...
Oh my god, what a dick.
Yeah, no, but funny enough, he's not the worst leader. The worst leader was Italian.
Once again, not surprising.
So, yeah, I don't have a good bone in my body for Haig.
No.
So
I do not. I newly do not either.
And at the end of the Somme, they captured nothing. They captured a bit of land. Haig celebrated like they won the war, but to give credit to Haig, he's the one that ended the war, but it took him a lot to get there. Do the ends justify the means?
How did he do that?
I can't remember. It's a lot.
You know what I want to know before that?
It's a very specific answer. You're talking tactics, and tactics are kind of boring these days. And So
You're just like, I just,
I
nah.
don't want to know tactics.
What I do want to know is I want to know trench life.
Trench life. What do you want to know about trench life?
Everything. Well, like everything. Give me your favorite points about trench life. Because I know how much you love trench life.
My favorite point is the German trenches. How the Germans were smart. The Germans dug into. They made a defensive line, right? Fun fact, everybody. I made her watch some movies. She watched 1917. Yeah. Do you remember when they jumped in the German trenches? They looked immaculate. They had underground living quarters, and they had stone walls.
Yep.
They prepared for a long haul battles. Mm-hmm. They knew.
Ooh, wait, can I say something real quick? Something I didn't know when I watched 1917 was the fact that there were barbed wire everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
In no man's land.
Everywhere. Yeah. It was a field. You couldn't escape it, essentially. Mm-hmm. And there were people's jobs to go over the trench at night to put that barbed wire in there.
Oh, man.
And at first they had hammers. That was the tool they were given. So, tunk, tunk.
Tunk, tunk.
Oh, Hans, I hear them. That's how it happened, Eventually, they had screwed them into the ground. It took them a few years to figure that one out. But
they figured it out.
Yeah.
After they lost a few too many men.
Yeah. Do you remember that giant hole when they were crawling over the trenches and they were walking through?
Yes, actually.
That's from tunneling. That's what tunneling causes.
That's basically a collapse tunnel?
That's from a tunnel explosion.
Oh, man.
That's how devastating they were.
Man, oh, man.
So, the German trenches were immaculate. They were wonderful. They were well prepared. The British and the French trenches, not so much. They dug in. Mm-hmm. They dug in to be there for a bit, They thought overconfidence. They thought they were going to be out of there for... So, what else do you want to know?
Just tell me, okay, so basically, how are they built?
Shovels.
Did people stay there for a long time? Were a whole bunch of stuff.
A whole bunch of stuff. Okay.
So basically, what I want to know is, so you have people digging trenches, correct?
Yeah.
Did people die while they were digging trenches? Because presumably the Germans had their trenches built, or were they just both digging their trenches at the same time going, hey, hello, how's it going?
They were out of range of each other at the front.
Okay.
Right. And so what you would do is you would dig down, right, the farthest way possible, and you would, from there, dig forward. And then you would dig another trench, and then dig forward, and then dig another. And you just get closer and closer to each other.
But you'd still be exposed.
No, because you're digging forward. You're not going up.
Oh, I get it.
Like a tunnel.
So you're not... Yeah, I got it. Okay. I didn't know that. I thought they were dug down from the top. But no, in theory, all the trenches are connected. All the lines are connected.
In a way, yeah. It's a huge system. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And then did people alternate in the trench? Because there was the front lines and there were the back lines.
Did you forget episode 1 of this podcast?
No, I didn't forget, but I want you to say it again.
You want me to
That's why I'm asking you the questions.
See if I remember it?
Yes.
Right, so you got your...
Because I know the answer to this. I know that people had breaks,
yes.
But I want you to say it again.
Okay, well, you were only in the trench for about a week at a time, right? You had your front line trench, you had your middle trench, and you had your rear trench. So the front line trench was the front. It was the worst place in the world, right? That's where all the mud was. That's where all the dead bodies were. That's where all the explosions were, right? You had your middle tent where you got your food, your ammunition, you got everything. And then you got your reserve tent at the back, trench at the back, right? You chill, you relax. That's where you're good, right? Mm-hmm. Happy?
I am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then what about disease in the trenches?
Trench foot, obviously.
What is trench foot?
Trench foot.
I know what trench foot is, but maybe not everyone knows what trench foot is.
That's why you should change your socks when your socks get wet. It's because your feet start to rot and fall off.
Yep.
Do you know?
Necrosis, yeah.
Fun fact. Here's a fun fact. What was the most common type of disease during the war?
Cholera.
No.
Wait, let me guess again. It's not trench foot.
It's...
Wait, stop. Tuberculosis. No. Okay, wait. Let me try again. No, it's not typhoid. No. Can't be typhoid. Not the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu?
No.
That was also prevalent in the First World War. Let's not forget.
End, yes, but it wasn't the main disease.
No. It was 1918. I don't know. Tell me.
STDs. You're a man. You're 16, 17 years, 18 years old in the trenches, right? You're on relief, right? You can go to Paris. You can chill. You might die tomorrow.
Prostitution
was huge during the war. Huge.
Syphilis.
Well, STDs, STIs.
I know, but general. Syphilis. Yeah. Remember the pictures you sent me?
Yes. Fun fact. Fun. Great.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's really not fun. For those who don't know what a person who has severely advanced syphilis looks like.
What it used to look like.
I recommend looking it up.
But syphilis
what it used to look like. What it used to look like someone with extremely advanced syphilis in the First World War. Not fun times. Really not fun times. There are craters, I tell you. Craters in your face.
So, do you know sex dolls? You know, blow-up sex dolls? You know when Hitler invented sex dolls?
Hitler invented sex dolls?
I think Hitler himself did it, or it was one of his officers. Is that a
conspiracy theorist?
No, look it up. Type in Google who invented blow-up sex doll.
Oh my god. Why were you right? Okay. So, claim. Adolf Hitler was behind the invention of the first inflatable sex dolls. Fact check, false.
Of course it is. I hate that website.
Wait a second.
Check your facts.
Why is it false? Who did then? Apparently, they declared the Borghild project was supposedly a super secret attempt to stop the spread of syphilis by providing Nazi soldiers with inflatable sex dolls. However, the writer also acknowledged that the Borghild project was a hoax. Sadly, the evidence in support of having actually happened is sketchy, so it probably isn't a true story. But Hitler invented the sex doll is such an awesome idea. We should pretend it happened anyway. I mean, what's Hitler going to do about it now, right?
To be fair.
This is from Snopes.com. I am reading.
To be fair, they said probably not true.
Yeah, this is true. The earliest sex doll is credited to Dutch sailors in the 17th century who used a doll made of cloth to relieve sexual tension during long sea voyages. I didn't say
sex dolls. I said blow-up sex dolls.
Okay.
There's a difference.
The blow up.
You're going...
What is this episode?
Yeah, you're going way too deep into this.
It's a hoax.
You're embarrassing me, Olivia.
Tis a hoax.
You're embarrassing me.
I'm sorry, but it's a hoax. It's okay. I look stupid all the time. We could look stupid together. Okay, so wait, where were we? Okay, so yeah, trench life, blow up sex doll. Not Hitler's invention, but like Hitler was combating in the war in the 1910s. 19 teens. Haha.
So, what else?
Okay, so what have we covered? We have covered trenches. What else would we
fun fact.
Cover in the First World War? Tell me.
Fun fact. The first shot by the Americans in the war from artillery hit a church.
Oh my god. In where?
I can't remember where, but the first shot America made in the war hit a church.
Oh, how ironic.
And blew up the cross.
Oh, how ironic.
I know.
Wow. Okay.
We're here.
Boom.
You ever heard that song, I can't remember, Way Back Home, Dixie? It's a Confederate battle song, right? And it's so good but when the British, when the Americans arrived in the war, the British started playing the Dixie song for the Americans arriving. It's a Confederate song.
I wish I was in
Yeah,
Dixieland.
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, hold on.
That's-
Let's play it.
We're gonna play it.
We're gonna play it. Are you ready? Huh, we have an ad.
That's an ad. I hope we don't get copyright claim for this one.
We won't. I'll play just a few seconds. This is so American. Is there singing?
Yes.
Oh, yes, there is. It's not nice to laugh. I'll stop laughing. But it's the Confederates, so I'm
Such a
allowed.
good song, though.
It's quite catchy.
It is.
I have to admit.
Abraham Lincoln loved it so much he played it after the Battle of Gettysburg.
Of course he did. It's so quintessentially American. I'm satisfied with that. Okay, tell me the biggest. What is your favorite thing about the First World
My
War?
favorite thing.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's so much for me to talk about. So,
But just the most wow thing.
all right, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about two separate things here because I love both of them equally.
Thank you.
So one of them
Exactly.
is called the Battle of Jutland, right? It is the only major sea battle in the entire war, right? Remember how the Germans and the British were building their ships?
Yeah. What
So,
year?
16 as well. But
Okay.
so the British and the Germans had this new ship called the Dreadnought, right? Dreadnoughts put everything out of class. Everything was irrelevant to Dreadnoughts. And it was the only time they met was at Battle of Jutland because they were so precious, you know. It's like a
You're like,
new.
no. It's like fine china.
I was gonna
No,
say
no,
it's
we
like
can't use those.
it's like buying $1,000 shoes, you know.
Yeah.
You don't want to wear them. They cost you so much.
Just like, no, it's okay.
So-
I'm just gonna put them on display.
So at the Battle of Jutland, the Germans fired on the British, right? And it hit their front, one of their ships, right? It blew up. And then another one blew up. And then another one blew up. And the admiral at the time says, there appears to be a problem with our ships today. They just kept blowing. And then the British fired back at them. And then they thought, okay, let's not do this. And they went home. And there was no tactics. There was no tactics at the time either. They were using old sail ship tactics because a battle like this had never happened before. So,
You know, it kind of blows my mind that the entire world came on board for something that was probably very local.
pretty much, it's like American elections, you know. It's a very
Literally.
yeah.
But it's as if, like, consider this, okay? It's as if there was some shit going down between the state of California and British Columbia, and then the entire world gets involved.
Well, not even just that. It was all because one man was shot.
Yes,
When you
but
really think about it,
right.
When you really
it is
think
all
about
because one man was shot. Yes, this is true.
Oh.
But that being said, I think that, you know, sure, yeah, the entire war was catalyzed by this assassination, but there was a lot of shit going down underneath the surface
yes.
already with Serbian nationalism, as we saw, and with, you know, just conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. So I think regardless, there was conflict happening, but just, you know, the assassination destabilized the
when
entire
you really
situation.
think about it, Gabriel Princip is the most successful assassin in history. And he did it, and it was a fluke, you know?
Yeah.
He didn't even do it
He
properly.
caused a lot of things to
He-
happen.
He died during the war in prison. Right? He lived long enough to know what was happening. But he died of infection because the prison was so terrible.
How anticlimactic.
Yeah, I know. He didn't live to see the end of the war, unfortunately.
It's like, okay, so this is completely off topic, but it made me think of this. So the original Buddha,
Yeah.
like the Buddha, okay, he lived until he was 80 years old. You know what he died of?
What?
Food poisoning. Right? How anticlimactic. It's like this great and powerful man who essentially catalyzed an entire religion. Oop, died of food poisoning.
Oops. Yeah. And can you, like, Japan is invading islands. Japan is invading German islands because some kid shot some guy in some town somewhere. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's literally it. I mean, it is the heir of the throne, but yeah, it's insane. And the entire world gets involved because of it. And you know, it's actually interesting when you mentioned that Britain got involved just because they were concerned that Germany had ships that could then go on to invade Britain. That's one. I mean, Canada only got involved because they were supporting England.
Yeah, because they were dragged into it. They had to.
Exactly. They had to. So Canada was involved because of that. And then the rest of Europe was just like panicking because there was a war going on. So it's just everybody was kind of just taken by panic. And that's why the war was happening in the end, to a certain extent.
Do you know why America joined the war?
Why did America? Oh, no, that's the Second World War. Second World War is Pearl Harbor,
Yes.
right? Yeah, no. I don't know why they joined in the First World War.
Well, there were a few reasons. The Lusitania got sunk.
Okay.
Yeah, remember past episodes? Lusitania,
Mm-hmm.
Cunard. So, Lusitania got sunk. That's not the main cause, but on board, Lusitania was the passenger ship that got sunk, right? And the Germans claimed that the Americans were smuggling weapons on it, right? And they were like, "No, we weren't." They were. They found out years later. Yeah, we explored the ship and found weapons. So.
Yeah.
But the main thing was called the Zimmermann telegram, where the Germans sent a telegram to Mexico, telling Mexico that if you are willing, we will help you invade America. Right? But the British managed to intercept the telegram and show it to the United States, where the Americans then entered the war.
Because they were like, we are now at risk. Okay.
But at the same time, I looked this up a couple of weeks ago. Why would the Americans just go accept what the British showed them? You know? But you know, like, here, look, they were going to invade, come join the war. Like, no. But actually, the Germans were, the Americans were like, so did you send this? And they're like, sorry, yeah, we did. They admitted it. What? They should have just denied the whole thing.
Oh my God. See, this is why I feel like the First World War was just a dumpster fire.
It was a dumpster fire. And the weird...
No one knew what they were doing. Everyone was just shooting guns that they've never heard of before. Using equipment that they've never used before.
Tactics.
Digging tunnels. Tactics that were just outdated, but also completely unstrategic. Yeah. Like, for example, like you were mentioning with Verdun. Completely unstrategic.
Nothing.
But in the end, it was kind of just like...
Verdun, except morale.
No, it was just, we're fighting.
Yeah. No, it was to break French morale by capturing our sacred city. That's it. You know?
Exactly. And in the end, okay, sure, whatever. But it sounds like it wasn't very strategically thought out.
No, it wasn't. It was off to the side somewhere.
Exactly. So
it was kind of like
a dumpster fire. It's like the entirety of Europe just felt like fighting. Okay,
no, that's
very controversial opinion. But yeah,
that's basically it. Is they wanted a war. A war was coming because everybody was getting bored. It's like today. Everybody thinks the war is coming today. We don't know where it's going to come from, but at the same time, you get this weird sense that people seem excited about it. You know. Yeah. Yeah. But it's always the people who say that. The people who are most excited are the ones that don't have to fight in the war, you know? Oh, I didn't even tell you the other thing.
Tell me.
So, I talked about the ships, right? And now let's talk about airplanes.
Ooh, airplanes.
Yeah, so...
Tell me.
What were airplanes... You know, airplanes were just over a decade old at this time, right? So, what were airplanes used for at the beginning of the war? The first 2 years.
Messages.
No.
Transportation.
No.
Spying.
Sort of. Reconnaissance.
Oh, okay.
You know, you fly up, you look over the edge, and you go, all right, so there's the trench, and there's
Right.
the factory. And then...
That's what I meant by spying.
Yeah, then they took cameras up and they started taking pictures, and then... So that's where battle plans came from. And... And then I think the first air combat, was between two planes, and they just, I think, threw things at each other. I think they had pistols, and they just started shooting at each other.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how air combat started. And then, so the Germans started building fighter planes, and the British and French started building fighter planes. And then it was around 1916 is when fighter planes started. It didn't start immediately. It took 2 years for it to happen, right? And I'll give you $5 if you know who Manfred von Richthofen is.
The Red Baron.
Yeah, shit. So, so Manfred von Richthofen actually started off as a cavalryman. He was a lancer, and then ended up in the trenches, and he thought, screw this, and he became a pilot. And turned out to be the best pilot in the world at the time, right?
There you go.
So, do you know how many kills you need to become an ace?
16.
No.
21.
No.
I don't know. How many?
5. You need 5 kills to become an ace.
Interesting. Okay.
Manfred von Richthofen had 80 kills.
Damn. He was an ace times lot.
And newspapers, what they would do is they used to have competitions, right? You open up your newspaper in the morning, and they have a list of pilot names on the side and what country they belong to, and who was the top ace of the time. You know, then you got Richthofen, you got all the way down to the number of kills they got, and then they would have like a scratch out in their name if they died. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Richthofen survived right before the end of the war. He died. He was being chased by a Canadian pilot. And I think it was Roy Brown. He was being chased by a Canadian ace called Roy Brown. And we don't know what happened, because Richthofen did something he always told his students never to do, was fly low to the ground and fly straight. And then he flew over an Australian gunner, and the gunner was shooting up, and they got the Canadian shooting behind him, and then Roy Brown took the kit.
And then boom.
Boom, yeah. So the Canadian Roy Brown took the credit, but modern thought goes, okay, well, we think it was the Australian, because he was shot upwards.
Yeah.
So that's how Richthofen died. 80 kills. He had 2 kills, I think that day before, or that day, the last 2 kills. He was a natural. He just went up there and like, ooh, let's just do this. Do you know why he painted his plane red?
No.
It's so his enemy can see him. It's to
And they could fear him.
not just that. It's so they could come after him, so he could counter them and go after them. It's so he could outmaneuver them.
That's confidence.
Yeah, his corps was called the Flying Circus because all the planes in his regiment or squadron were painted colors, like rainbow colors and stuff. And they called themselves the Flying Circus.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Literally the Flying Circus.
Yeah. I say squadron. They called Jasta. They called them the Jastas. But Jasta 9. Wow. Yeah.
Good for him. But also that's not good.
You ever heard of,
I shouldn't say good for
you ever
him.
heard of Hermann Goering?
Nope.
Hermann... No.
I have not. No.
Hermann Goering was the Grand General of the German Luftwaffe during the Second World War, of the German Air Force, essentially. He was in charge of the German Air Force.
You said that as if it was like common knowledge. The German Luftwaffe.
The Luftwaffe. Yeah, so the German Air Force was under the command of him, and he was in Jasta, the Flying Circus, and he fought alongside the Red Baron. Yeah. Yeah.
That's when you know you have solid people.
He only accepted the best. He had the greatest honor in Germany. He had everything. But
I feel like that's why the Air Force gets so much credit.
Yeah.
so much praise. Everyone sees it as like the hardest job in the army.
It's funny how he was called the Red Baron. He was sort of royalty. He was like Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of them, an aristocrat. That's what the von in his name is. Von is
exactly aristocratic.
Manfred of Richthofen, of the family Richthofen. Yeah. So I don't know what the Downton Abbey names are,
but not that.
No, what's their last name?
But yes, I don't even know. I don't remember. Your mom is watching it now.
She just finished it. Actually, she finished the movie as well.
There's a movie?
You didn't know there was a movie?
No.
There's a Downton Abbey movie.
What in the heck? Why didn't I watch the
Downton
Abbey
movie? It came
movie?
out like last year, and apparently it's amazing.
Okay, well that's why. I finished watching Downton Abbey like 3 years ago.
Oh, well, guess what? There's a movie. And
you know what their last name is?
What?
Crawley.
Crawley?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like Manfred von Crawley, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I got it.
Good job.
Thank you.
So there was one question you asked me the other day.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the original name of the House of Windsor?
Okay. This is actually something that I stumbled upon today.
Did you cheat?
But no.
Okay.
I actually stumbled upon it because I was... You know what I did? I went down the ancestry of Queen Elizabeth, essentially.
Yeah.
Because at one point in The Crown, aka the best show in the world right now, so at one point in The Crown, Queen Elizabeth says to Prince Charles, Queen Mary ended up with the man that she didn't want because her actual love of her life, the charming man, died. And I was like, huh? What? And so I looked back, and apparently George V had a brother, Albert Victor. And Albert Victor died at the age of 28, and he was engaged to Mary of Teck. And Mary of Teck and Albert Victor were supposed to be married, and obviously Albert Victor was the heir to the throne. But then when he died, they basically took Mary Teck and they got her to marry George V. And then George became the king.
Okay. George V. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, do you remember the original name?
I do not.
Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha.
There you go.
So, for all those who don't know, the House of Windsor, Queen Elizabeth, that's her house, House of Windsor. Right? It was originally called Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha. It was changed during the First World War. Do you know why?
Why?
It's a German name.
So where does this whole German name come from?
A German name? It doesn't go that far back. It goes back to Victoria. Because Victoria, I'm pretty sure Albert, I could be wrong, but it's not that far back. There was a German who married into the family with the family name Habsburg and Kova, and they had kids, and then I'm pretty sure it was Albert.
Oh, okay. It might have been Albert.
Yeah. Like for example, back in William Wallace's time, you had the Plantagenets, right? You had Edward the First, the Second, the Third, and then you got the Tudors, right? And then you got the Stuarts from Scotland, and then you had the House of Orange. They were Dutch. I am incorrect. I figured it out. And then you got George the First. George the First. So what happened was William died. Queen Anne died. Anne the First died, or just Anne. And there was no heir to the throne, so they had to turn far back as far as they could. And then they took him all the way to a small duchy in Germany. And they plucked this guy out of nowhere and said, by the way, you're king. He's like, what? He couldn't speak English. He'd never been in England.
My God.
And then suddenly he was proclaimed George the First. And he was German. So.
And that's where the name comes from?
Maybe, but that's where the German origin comes from.
Okay.
I'm going to Google Saxe. I'm going to do it. My turn to Google Saxe.
Okay. Our podcast has now become, let us Google things for you.
It's whatever. Okay, so the House of Hanover was what the original name was all the way until 1901, until Saxyburg and Kova.
Until Edward.
Yes, essentially. So
who was Saxyburg?
I'm pretty sure it was Albert.
Okay.
Yeah, the founder was George
It's
the
kind of
Fifth.
like
The founder was George the Fifth.
The what?
George the Fifth was the founder.
Oh, Saxyburg-Coburg?
Yeah. Gotha.
Saxyburg and Gotha.
Saxe, S-A-X-E dash Coburg, C-O-B-U-R-G, and Gotha, G-O-T-A.
Saxy,
D-H-A.
Coburg, and Gotha.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
Interesting.
Good job.
Thank you.
That's deep. That's some deep stuff right there.
That is some deep stuff.
Remember,
that is way tangent.
Remember we were
deep
talking
stuff.
about World War One?
Yeah.
You should put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. Disclaimer, this is kind of just a talking episode. And you asked me a question, how did World War One end?
Yes.
I'll tell you next episode. Because it directly it directly connects to the Second World War, how the Second World War started.
Okay, I approve.
So remind me.
Fabulous. I shall. Alrighty.
Thank you everybody for listening to us ramble for ever.
An hour and 35 minutes.
An incoherent mess of rambling.
But that is okay.
Yeah,
I hope you learned something. And if you didn't learn anything, at least you learned the way we talk about history with each other.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of sad, really.
How is it really sad?
I don't know. I say that all the time.
It's absolutely wonderful.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. You should all be jealous.
Exactly. Alrighty.
Okay. See you next time. Bye.
Goodbye.